Have you ever felt an overwhelming urge to tell the world about your progress just to feel seen, even for a moment? Or maybe you've hesitated to take the next step, afraid that without someone else's approval, it somehow doesn't count. What if I told you that the more you depend on applause, the more you hand over your power to people who might not even care? Focusing on yourself, moving in silence, protecting your energy, and building quietly but powerfully from within. There's a hidden trap that so many of us walk into quietly, day by day. It's the need for validation, the desire for someone else to notice, to clap, to approve. We want recognition for our effort, and not for our decisions, reassurance that we're on the right track. But here's the truth that stings a little: the second you rely on that outside approval, you lose something. You give away your strength, your center. And worse, you start to live on the edge of other people's opinions, people who may cheer for you today, but forget your name tomorrow. So what happens when the clapping stops? That's when you discover something important: you were never supposed to rely on their noise to validate your worth. The real path, the lasting one, begins when you choose to focus on yourself. Not in a selfish, ego-driven way, but in a conscious, purposeful way that shapes you into a better version of yourself every single day. When you make yourself a priority, your focus shifts. You stop peeking into other people's lanes. You stop chasing those who don't respect your time or energy. You stop bending over backward trying to explain yourself to people who have already made up their minds about you. And suddenly, you feel lighter, freer, more in control. Think about this: how often do your dreams sit on pause because you're too afraid of how others might react? Maybe you're working hard behind the scenes, making real progress, but the moment you share it, someone says something dismissive or negative, and your motivation takes a hit. Sound familiar? Here's the truth: people will always have something to say. Whether you're winning or just getting started, someone will have an opinion. But let's be honest, those opinions won't pay your bills. They won't heal your heart, and they certainly won't define your worth. The moment you start choosing your growth over their validation, everything shifts. You stop craving their attention. You stop posting every little win for approval. You stop living for likes or acceptance from people who wouldn't even notice if you quietly faded away. Instead, you build something deeper: discipline, purpose, grit. You begin waking up each day and putting in the effort, not because someone's watching, not because you're being praised, but because you know it's what needs to be done. That's where the real power lies. And when you're laser focused on becoming your best self, you don't need to announce your goals. Your results will do the talking. And trust me, they will see it. The ones who doubted you, the ones who ignored you, they'll all see it, eventually. But here's the beautiful part: by then, their opinions won't matter anymore. Why? Because your journey was never about proving them wrong. It was always about proving yourself right. And that brings peace. A kind of peace that's hard to shake. You stop reacting to every judgment. You stop explaining your path. You stop defending your growth. You just live rooted in your truth, grounded in your value. And you finally realize your worth was never up for debate. So let me ask you something: are you living for their approval or your own fulfillment? Are you making decisions based on what you truly want? Or are you still adjusting yourself to fit into someone else's expectations? Because in the end, only you live with your choices. Only you wake up each morning and face the person in the mirror. It's time to stop waiting. Stop hoping someone else gives you the green light to chase your dreams. If you want to grow, grow. If you're ready to change your life, start today. Don't wait another second for applause that may never come. You are enough. And the only permission you've ever needed is your own. Now, let's talk about one of the most powerful, underrated tools you have, the quiet strength that the world has forgotten: silence. The power of silence. We live in a time where silence is rare. In a world so loud, so hungry for attention, there's a strange belief that if you're not talking about what you're doing, then maybe it's not even happening. If you're not sharing, posting, announcing every step, you must not be progressing. But here's the truth. Real power doesn't come from speaking. It comes from doing, from showing up consistently, from knowing exactly when to speak, and even more importantly, when to stay silent. Silence, despite what many people believe, is not weakness. It's not insecurity, and it certainly isn't a lack of confidence. In fact, silence might be the greatest display of inner strength. It's a strategy, a form of discipline. It's the decision to protect your energy and preserve your peace. Because not every thought needs to be shared. Not every move requires an announcement. Not every opinion deserves a response. When you learn to control your words, you start to take back control of your life. The noise of the world no longer pulls you in every direction. You stop reacting to every insult, every misunderstanding, every jab. You start choosing your battles wisely, calmly, and with intention. But the truth is, most people love noise. They're addicted to it. Drama, gossip, validation, they feed on it. That's why so many fall into the trap of over-explaining themselves, trying to prove something to people who don't matter, or worse, people who never cared to understand them in the first place. Let me be clear. You don't owe anyone an explanation. You don't need to prove your journey, your progress, your plans to anyone. The people who truly matter will recognize your growth without you having to say a single word. And the ones who don't, they were never really paying attention to begin with. There's a reason the most successful people in the world don't argue online. They don't waste energy responding to negativity. They don't explain every step they take. Because they understand a powerful truth: real success is built in silence. It happens in the quiet. In those long, lonely hours when no one is watching, when no one is clapping, when no one is even aware of what's happening behind the scenes. That's where the magic is. That's where real growth happens. But some of you are letting the need for recognition slow you down. You crave people's attention. You want them to see the effort, the grind. And when they don't respond the way you hoped, you begin to doubt yourself. But hear me clearly. Their approval is not required for your success. You don't need to broadcast every step just to prove you're moving forward. Your work, your consistency, your dedication, they will speak for themselves when the time is right. Some parts of your journey are sacred. They deserve protection. Your ideas, your dreams, your progress, not everyone should have access to those things. Sometimes, the best move is the one no one sees coming. Because the moment you start talking about everything you're building, you invite distractions, doubts, unsolicited opinions, negativity. And some of those words, they linger, they echo in your mind and plant seeds of fear before you even begin. Ever notice how the people who talk the most tend to accomplish the least? That's because they're spending all their energy trying to convince others of their potential, instead of proving it through action. But when you move in silence, when you focus on execution instead of explanation, you unlock something powerful. You stop wondering who believes in you. You stop checking for applause. You stop asking for permission. You just do the work. And when you do that with consistency, the results become impossible to ignore. You won't need to say a word, your success will speak loud enough. You just do the work. And when you do that with consistency, the results become impossible to ignore. You won't need to say a word, your success will speak loud enough. There's another advantage to mastering silence: unpredictability. People won't know what you're up to, which means they can't interrupt your process. They can't sabotage what they can't see. While they're busy talking, you're building. While they're distracted by noise, you're making progress in peace, with purpose. Understand this: silence doesn't mean you're afraid. It doesn't mean you lack direction. It means you've chosen a higher standard. It means you've realized that words don't create success, action does. It means you've reached a level of confidence where you no longer need to be loud to be powerful. You don't need to fight every battle. You don't need to respond to every comment. You don't need to announce every move, because you trust yourself enough to know what's meant for you will come whether the world sees it coming or not. And as you'll soon see, there's another quiet force that works against your focus. One that creeps in silently, often disguised as motivation. But in reality, it's one of the biggest traps we fall into. Let's talk about comparison. Don't let comparison steal your momentum. Whether people see your progress or not, one of the most silent yet dangerous traps in life is comparison. It doesn't always come with warning signs. In fact, it often sneaks in quietly, disguised as inspiration or motivation. You might be feeling good about yourself, proud of how far you've come, finally seeing growth after months of effort, and then, suddenly, you scroll through your feed, overhear a conversation, or see someone else excelling. They're doing better, moving faster, achieving more. And just like that, your confidence starts to crack. You start asking yourself questions that were never there before. Am I behind? Am I not doing enough? Why am I not where they are? But let me tell you the truth: comparison is a thief. It steals your focus, drains your energy, and slowly chips away at your joy. And if you're not careful, it will convince you that you're losing, even when you're actually making progress. Here's what most people forget: no two people have the same journey. You weren't meant to follow someone else's timeline. Your success won't look like theirs. Your lessons won't be the same, and that's okay. But instead of embracing their own path, so many people waste precious time measuring themselves against others. They look at someone else's wins and suddenly feel like they're failing, when in reality, they're just on a different chapter. The issue isn't that you're lacking, it's that you're looking in the wrong direction. When your eyes are fixed on someone else's lane, you stop seeing what's happening in your own. You miss your own progress because you're too busy watching someone else's highlight reel. And let's be honest, that's all it ever is. The best angles, the polished moments, the curated wins. Social media has made it worse. You don't see the late nights, the tears, the sacrifices, or the silent battles behind their scenes. You see the end result, not the effort. And if you're comparing your messy middle to someone else's polished outcome, of course you'll feel like you're not enough. But that feeling is a lie, one planted by distraction. That's why you have to train your mind like a muscle to stay focused on your own path. What someone else is doing, how quickly they're doing it, or how successful they appear, none of that matters. What matters is you. Your growth, your effort, your consistency. The only person you should ever compare yourself to is who you were yesterday. Yet, many of you are unknowingly holding yourselves back simply because you're too distracted. You keep glancing sideways, constantly checking who's ahead, who's watching, who's clapping. But here's a hard truth. None of that noise matters. Someone else's timeline has nothing to do with your potential. Their path is not your path. The moment you decide to fully focus on yourself, everything begins to change. You stop feeling pressured to prove yourself. You stop chasing things that don't align with your purpose. You stop living by someone else's definition of success and start creating your own. Of course, that requires something most people avoid: discipline. It takes awareness. It takes strength to remind yourself that just because someone else is winning doesn't mean you're losing. Life is not a competition. There is no finish line. No one is ahead. No one is behind. You are not late. You are not failing. You are exactly where you need to be. Let me give you an image. Picture a runner in a race. The moment they start looking side to side to see where others are, they lose rhythm. Their form breaks. Their momentum falters. They slow down not because they're not fast, but because they stop focusing on their own lane. That's exactly what happens when you let comparison lead. You lose speed. You start making decisions based on fear or pressure instead of purpose. You start responding to someone else's success instead of creating your own. But when you stay in your lane, when your eyes are forward and your energy is focused, you move with clarity. You move with purpose. You stop trying to keep up, and instead, you start building something of your own. That's where true growth happens, not in the rush, not in the noise, but in the quiet determination to become better than you were yesterday. And as you begin to understand this truth, there's another piece to the puzzle: your energy. Because even when you're on the right path, if you're not protecting your energy, you'll find yourself burned out, distracted, and stuck. So now the question becomes, how do you manage your energy when the world constantly tries to drain it? Protect your energy like your life depends on it. So today, I want you to make a decision, a bold, quiet decision. One that doesn't need to be posted or explained. A decision to stop looking outward and start looking inward. A decision to stop comparing yourself to everyone else and start measuring yourself against one simple standard: who was I yesterday? Because at the end of the day, that's the only competition that truly matters, the one between you and your own potential. And if you can wake up each morning and honestly say, "I'm better than I was yesterday," then you're already winning. But let's talk about the part most people ignore: energy. It is one of your most valuable resources, yet it's the one you give away the easiest. Think about it. How often do you spend your mental, emotional, and physical energy on things that don't matter? Arguments that lead nowhere, people who don't even care. Trying to prove yourself to those who were never listening in the first place. Too many people are mentally exhausted not from chasing their goals but from constantly reacting to distractions. You're drained not because you're doing too much, but because you're doing too much of the wrong things. You let small annoyances pull you off track. You give time to opinions that don't feed you. You hold on to relationships, conversations, or habits that should have been released a long time ago. Let that sink in. It's not that you're incapable. It's not that your dream is too big. It's that your energy is being scattered in 100 directions that don't serve your growth. Here's a truth most people don't want to hear. Not everyone deserves access to you. Just because someone demands your time doesn't mean they're entitled to it. Just because someone questions your path doesn't mean you owe them a detailed explanation. You don't have to justify your choices. You don't need to reply to every comment or explain your silence. Some things are better handled quietly. Some battles aren't worth fighting. Some people are only there to distract you, delay you, or derail your progress. And if you're not careful, you'll spend more time dealing with distractions than actually building your dreams. There's a big difference between being busy and being productive. Some people stay busy their entire lives, always involved in something, always reacting, always putting out fires. But look closely, and you'll see that they're not actually going anywhere. They end the day drained, not driven, distracted, not disciplined. Why? Because they never learned to protect their energy. When you start being selective, when you start asking yourself, is this worth my time? Does this deserve my attention? Everything changes. You stop getting pulled into meaningless arguments. You stop explaining yourself to people who already made up their minds. You stop wasting mental space on things that don't move you forward. You move differently. You move lighter. You move with intention. And most importantly, you begin to make real progress. Quiet, steady, powerful progress. The kind that doesn't always get attention right away, but eventually becomes impossible to ignore. Of course, people will always have something to say. They'll have opinions about your pace, your methods, your silence. But their opinions don't build your future. Their words don't fund your dreams. And the moment you realize that you're free, truly free, you stop trying to change their minds. You stop hoping for applause. You stop giving your precious energy to people and situations that do nothing but drain you. Instead, you take all that energy back and you place it exactly where it belongs, on yourself. Your peace, your growth, your goals, your life. And when you begin living that way, quiet, focused, intentional, something beautiful happens. Your energy sharpens into discipline. You no longer react to everything. You begin to respond only to what truly matters. Consistency is the secret they don't talk about. There's a shift that happens when you stop reacting to every little thing around you. A calm begins to grow inside you, a calm built from discipline, not detachment. You begin to understand that not everything needs your response, and not everything deserves your energy. You no longer move on impulse. You move with purpose. And when that shift happens, people notice. At first, they might not understand. They'll wonder why you're no longer engaging in the same meaningless conversations. Why you've stopped explaining yourself. Why your reactions have changed, less noise, more focus. But eventually, they'll see it. They'll see the difference. They'll feel your peace. They'll witness your growth. And most of all, they'll see the undeniable results of a person who has stopped wasting energy and started using it wisely. From this moment forward, I want you to guard your energy like your life depends on it, because in many ways, it does. When you become selective, intentional, and focused, the world around you starts to shift. The distractions lose their grip. The chaos fades into the background. You begin to move with more clarity, more control, more power. But here's the truth most people avoid. Everyone wants success until it requires consistency. People get excited about a new goal, a fresh start, a powerful vision. They set intentions, buy planners, make vision boards. But when the excitement fades, and it always does, their effort fades with it. They start strong, but the moment it gets hard, or progress slows down, they start looking for shortcuts, for easier paths, for quick wins. But success doesn't work like that. Real success is boring. It's built on repetition, on the quiet and glamorous work that happens when no one is watching. It's not about occasional effort. It's about showing up every single day, even when you're tired, even when it's raining, even when no one claps, even when it feels like nothing is moving. You want to know who truly succeeds. It's not the loudest. It's not the ones making big announcements about their goals. It's not the ones posting every milestone. It's the ones working in silence with their heads down, hearts committed, and habits locked in. They don't need outside approval because they're driven by something stronger, self-respect. They know that consistency isn't glamorous, but it's powerful. They understand that small disciplined actions, repeated over time, produce results that loud declarations never will. But too many people want the reward without the grind. They want the result without the discipline. They want the destination without taking the full journey. And when success doesn't arrive on their timeline, they start making excuses, blaming the world, circumstances, other people. Everything except their own inconsistency. You don't get to skip the hard part. You don't get to bypass the discomfort. You either stay consistent or you stay stuck. So think about it. How many times have you seen someone start something with fire in their eyes, only to quit a few weeks later? How many times have you done that? Be honest. You commit, you get excited, but when life gets in the way, you let it fade. Not because you're incapable, but because you relied on motivation, and motivation is unreliable. Motivation fades. Discipline stays. The people who make it, the ones who rise above, don't depend on how they feel. They depend on their habits. They build routines that don't ask how they feel before showing up. They show up anyway. Because they know the truth. Success is built in the moments when you don't feel like doing the work, but you do it anyway. Some of you are sitting on dreams right now, dreams that could change your entire life. But you're still waiting, waiting for the right time, waiting for the perfect mood, waiting for the stars to align. And you keep telling yourself, I'll start next week, or when things settle down. But deep down, you already know, there is no perfect time, there is only now. If you don't have the discipline to start now, you won't magically find it later. If you're not consistent today, the future you want will keep slipping further away. You've got to move in silence. You've got to stop broadcasting every plan before it's even started. You've got to stop begging for validation before you've even taken the first step. Just start. Just do the work. And speaking of silence, there's a reason why moving quietly is so powerful. Because the moment you start talking too much about your dreams, you invite doubt, distraction, and noise. So in this next chapter, let's dive into why silence isn't just strategy, it's protection. Silence isn't just strategy, it's protection. Begin. Just begin. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait for applause. Don't wait for people to get it. Just do the work. Because here's the truth, the more you talk, the more you open the door to doubt. When you share every plan, every move, every step before it even happens, you invite distraction. You give others the chance to insert their opinions, their fears, their limitations into your vision. And slowly, without realizing it, you start to shift. You start seeking approval instead of focusing on execution. But when you choose to move in silence, when you lock in on your goals with tunnel vision, something powerful happens. No one can interfere with your progress. Let me tell you something the world doesn't often acknowledge: results are louder than effort. People won't see your 5 a.m. mornings. They won't see the nights you almost quit but didn't. They won't feel the weight of your sacrifices or the quiet battles you fight with doubt. What they will see eventually is the outcome, the success, the transformation. And when it finally shows, they'll say, "Well, where did that come from?" They'll think it happened overnight. They won't realize it was years in the making. That's why you must stay consistent even when it feels like no one is watching. Even when it feels like no one cares. Because the process always tests you before it rewards you. It wants to know if you're serious, if you'll keep going when motivation runs dry, if you'll push forward when the results are invisible, if you'll bet on yourself even when no one else does. Success doesn't come to those who move only when it's convenient. It comes to those who move especially when it's not. The ones who keep showing up. The ones who don't need a crowd to validate the climb. The ones who find strength in the silence. But here's something most people don't realize. The world is full of noise, opinions, doubts, distractions, endless conversations that go nowhere. If you're not careful, that noise becomes your internal soundtrack. It drowns out your own voice. It pulls you in 100 different directions until one day you don't even remember why you started in the first place. That's why, at some point, you have to shut it all out. You have to make the conscious decision to cut through the static. To step back from people and situations that offer nothing but resistance and doubt. To stop explaining yourself to those who were never listening anyway. Because if you don't, you'll spend your whole life reacting instead of creating. You'll follow paths you were never meant to walk. You'll live by standards that aren't even yours. Here's something else you need to remember. Not everyone will understand your journey. And they don't have to. Some people won't believe in you. Others will try to discourage you not because they know what's best, but because your growth makes them uncomfortable. When you begin breaking free from limitations they've accepted, it forces them to question their own choices. And instead of rising with you, they'll try to pull you back down to where it's safe for them. But that's not your concern. You do not owe anyone an explanation for your growth. You don't need permission to change. You don't need approval to rise. Some of you are dragging the weight of other people's doubts, fears, and expectations. And it's slowing you down. You hesitate. You overthink. You second-guess every move. But let me ask you, whose life are you really living? Because those people won't be the ones facing the consequences of your decisions, you will. If you spend your life making everyone else comfortable, you will never discover the full strength of who you are meant to become. That's why you must move in silence, protect your vision, guard your focus. Don't hand your direction to people who can't even steer their own. Because the more you grow, the more the distractions will grow too. The more progress you make, the louder the opinions will become. But that's the test. That's the moment you either stay grounded in your purpose or get pulled by other people's expectations. And those who rise above, those who reach their full potential, they understand something deeper. Let your growth speak for you. There's something that those who truly succeed in life understand, something most people never realize until it's too late. They know that silence is power, that discipline is stronger than desire, that real focus comes from shutting out the noise, not just outside, but inside too. They don't wait for the world to cheer them on. They don't need everyone to agree with their vision. They don't chase validation, they chase alignment. They keep moving even when no one gets it, even when the path is lonely, even when the only voice pushing them forward is their own. Some of you reading this right now have dreams so big, they scare you. They stretch your comfort zone. They force you to imagine a life that no one around you has ever lived. And because of that fear, you start looking around, looking for reassurance, for signs, for anyone to say, yes, you're on the right track. But let me ask you, what if that approval never comes? What if no one sees what you see? What if they don't understand the fire inside you? Do you give up? Do you shrink your vision to fit their limitations? Or do you rise anyway? Because here's the truth. You cannot afford to wait for people to believe in you. You have to believe in yourself first. No one will take you seriously until you do. No one will respect your vision until you respect it enough to protect it. And the more you rely on outside validation, the weaker your foundation becomes. Because the moment they disapprove, the moment they question you, you start to doubt yourself. That's why you must be intentional about what you let in, about who gets access to your mind, your plans, your heart. Surround yourself with silence, not noise. With discipline, not drama. With clarity, not chaos. When you do that, you begin to walk differently. You carry yourself with a quiet confidence that doesn't need applause, that doesn't need to announce itself, that doesn't need permission to grow. At the end of the day, this is your life. Your dreams, your growth, your responsibility. The distractions, the opinions, the comparison games, they don't matter. What matters is your focus, your ability to stay committed even when it gets hard. Your decision to move forward when it feels like no one else understands. Because the world is full of noise, but the ones who rise above it, the ones who truly build something meaningful, are the ones who learn to be silent, to protect their energy, and to work in the shadows until their success becomes undeniable. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You don't need to broadcast every move. You don't need permission to become who you were born to be. What you need is consistency. What you need is resilience. What you need is the courage to keep showing up, even when the applause is silent, even when the results are invisible, even when your only motivation is your own inner voice whispering, "Don't quit." So stop explaining, stop waiting, stop shrinking. Focus on yourself, move in silence, protect your vision, do the work. Because if you do this long enough, if you stay committed, disciplined, and focused, there will come a day when your growth is so undeniable, so powerful, so radiant, that the world will no longer be able to ignore you. And the best part, you won't have to say a word. Your silence was never empty. It was full of preparation. Now it's time to let your results speak.